All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something that, quietly runs our entire financial world. It's called an audit. Now, that might sound a little dry, but I promise you, at its core, it's all about one simple, incredibly important thing: trust.
Think about it for a second. Let's say you're investing in a company, or maybe a bank is lending them a ton of money. How do you really know their financial story is legit, right? How can you be sure the numbers they're showing you, that they aren't just making them up?
Well, the answer to that question lies in a problem that is, honestly, as old as business itself. So let's dig into why we even need auditors in the first place.
Okay, so it all boils down to this fundamental conflict of interest. See, in most big companies today, the owners, that's the shareholders, people like you and me maybe, they aren't the ones running the show day to day. The managers are. And that separation, that creates what's called the agency problem. How do the owners, who have their own money on the line, actually trust that the managers are giving them the straight scoop on how the company's doing?
And, this whole need for an independent referee, it's not a new idea, not by a long shot. We're talking ancient history here. But the real game changer? That was the Industrial Revolution. Suddenly, you had these massive, complex companies popping up, and the demand for someone to check the books just exploded. And that's what eventually led to formalizing the whole profession. Setting up bodies like the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India in 1949 to make sure these financial watchdogs were all playing by the same rules.
So, this historical demand for a trusted referee, it gave us the modern audit. But what exactly is it? Let's break it down.
Okay, here's the definition you really got to lock in. An audit is an independent examination. That word, independent, is everything. The auditor can't be part of the company they're looking at. And their job isn't to give a 100% guarantee that everything is perfect. Nope. Their job is to look at the evidence and then express a professional opinion on whether the company's financial story is being told fairly.
And this brings up a huge misconception. So let's clear this up right now. An audit is not a fraud investigation. They're two totally different things. See, an auditor comes in with what's called professional skepticism, basically a questioning mind. They don't just take things at face value, but they are not assuming there's a crime. A fraud investigation, that's the complete opposite. It starts with the assumption that something's wrong, and its entire goal is to find proof of it. And that's exactly why you'll hear auditors talk about reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance. Just imagine a giant global company. There's no way an auditor can check every single one of the billions of transactions that happen. It's physically impossible. And these built-in limitations mean that even a perfectly clean audit isn't a 100% guarantee against fraud. We saw that in huge scandals like Enron, right, where massive wrongdoing was hidden for years, even with regular audits.
So really, the best way to think about an auditor is like a financial detective. They're not the cop showing up to make an arrest. They're the detective on the scene, carefully gathering clues, analyzing the evidence, and figuring out if the story the company is telling, if it all adds up.
So how does our financial detective actually do their job? Well, they're not just running around on a hunch. They follow a very clear, very structured playbook.
It's a really logical process. First, they plan their strategy. This means they have to get in there and really understand the company's business inside and out so they can figure out where the biggest risks are. Next, they look at the company's own internal controls. Does the company have good systems in place to prevent mistakes or fraud in the first place? And then finally, they get down to the nitty-gritty, gathering evidence by testing samples of actual transactions to make sure they're legit.
Now, when it comes to that evidence, our detective knows that not all clues are created equal. Think about it, right? An original bank statement that the auditor gets directly from the bank, that's way, way more reliable than a photocopy that the company's manager just hands them. A direct confirmation from a third party will always beat an internal document. The source of the evidence and what form it's in, that's absolutely everything.
So after all that planning, all that assessing, and all that evidence gathering, the whole entire process comes down to one single critical thing.
And that one thing is the audit opinion. This is it. This is the detective's final report. It's their official, public judgment on whether the company's financial story is told fairly, in all material respects. And that's a key phrase. It means, are there any mistakes or missing pieces big enough to actually mislead someone who's reading this report? And this final report card, it isn't just a simple pass or fail. A clean or unqualified opinion, that's the goal. That's the A+. It means the auditor didn't find any major issues. A qualified opinion is more like a B+. It's saying, hey, things are mostly okay, except for this one specific issue we're flagging for you. Then you have an adverse opinion. That's a huge red flag. That's basically the auditor saying the financial story is just not being told fairly. And maybe the worst of all is a disclaimer, which is when the auditor says we couldn't even get enough evidence to form an opinion at all. Ouch.
Okay, so a clean report card is obviously great for the company, but why should this whole, very detailed process, why should it matter so much to the rest of us, to the economy as a whole?
Is because that audit opinion, it is literally the bedrock of confidence in our financial system. It's what gives investors the guts to buy stocks. It's what gives banks the confidence they need to lend money. And hey, a company with a clean audit can often borrow that money cheaper. Even governments rely on it for things like collecting taxes. It's this one document that creates this huge ripple effect of trust that really keeps the entire economy moving.
So yeah, the audit is this incredibly powerful tool for keeping things transparent and honest. But at the end of the day, it's a system that's built on very human things, like professional judgment and ethics. And that leaves us with one last really crucial question to chew on. If this is the very system designed to build and protect trust in our economy, what happens to all of us when that trust gets broken?